There is a stigma that tends to arise around people playing games in easy or story mode, because for some reason that equates to you being bad at a game. But I personally really like story mode. And after a recent conversation I had with a developer, it really got me thinking about the different levels that we can choose to play within a video game. So grab your favorite mug, and let's talk about why story mode is actually one of the most important additions to happen to video games in recent years. When you play a harder or easier difficulty, it is a fundamental fact that you are playing the game outside of its intended experience. Normal mode in a game is the way that it is meant to be played, and that's because it is often a more balanced experience between game mechanics and storytelling. Easier modes tend to focus on a more story-rich experience, with things like QuickTime events and puzzles being easier to navigate and a lot less consequential. And that's done so that the players can focus on the story. Harder modes, on the other hand, often have a stronger focus on game mechanic, with QuickTime events and puzzles being maybe a bit more difficult to solve or faster paced. And this does two things. It has an increased focus on the game mechanics, which inherently means that the story is going to take more of a back seat, and it provides the player with extra challenge. Why does it matter that games offer different levels of difficulty, specifically story mode? And why should you care? The first thing that I want to talk about is why I think video games offering a story mode should be the standard. I'm going to make an assumption, because I have recorded this before anybody has had the chance to share their thoughts with me one way or the other, and assume that if you do prefer to play on a normal or harder difficulty, it is often because you prefer a more balanced experience, the way that developers often intend their games to be played, or because you enjoy the game mechanics and like the challenge. So on the other hand, why do people play in story mode? As somebody who likes to play games in easier difficulties, I have really only recently come to start to appreciate the other half of what makes video games such a unique format to play in. I am in love with the stories that can be told through video games. But is there something else about easy mode that I'm drawn to? I think it boils down to wanting to take my time with the game at a more leisurely pace. I don't want to rush. I want to look at every detail of the game. I want to complete all the side quests before I move on to the next section. And if I'm being entirely honest, I don't want to get frustrated learning a new game mechanic while I'm playing the game for the first time. If I get too frustrated with the game because I'm not getting the game mechanics fast enough, I will likely just DNF the game. And what I mean by that is that it is likely that I will never play a Dark Souls game. I am a sore loser. I don't enjoy games that rely on repeated loss, because the core game mechanic is trial and error and learning enemy patterns. And maybe that makes me a bad gamer, but in my opinion, I think it just means I know what I have the patience for when it comes to games. I know how I like to enjoy games right now, and that could change in the future. And this is where my conversation with that developer really got me thinking. Because the thing that I as a player never really thought about was how changing the difficulty of the game changes the experience. I mean, the way that I initially like to play a game is not the way that a developer intended when they were building the game. Which brought me back to that question, why do I play in story mode? Sure, okay, I like the story, but is there something more I'm not addressing? And yeah, actually, there is. If I'm being really honest with myself, I am still intimidated by a lot of games that are on the market. So I fall back into what I know makes a game comfortable for me. Again, I am a sore loser, and I don't like being wrong about things. And game mechanics both make me lose and launch me off the surface of a planet. Oh god, 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 oh god. Oh my god, I forgot. Oh my god. So shift isn't run, which is kind of embarrassing. But don't get it twisted. While I have a growing appreciation for game mechanics because they are so fundamental in storytelling through video games, I am still likely going to play games in story mode. I just know what I like and what I have the patience for. And it is not going to be Dark Souls anytime soon. I will stick to Monster Hunter if I want something to beat me up and make me retry again and again and again and again. But going back to what I said about being intimidated by video games, how do you get people to play games that might be intimidating? Baldur's Gate 3 is my best personal experience that I can think of with a game that, on the surface, I thought that I would hate. It's a turn-based, combat-heavy game that is, honestly, just often not my cup of tea. It was massively intimidating. It seemed really technical and complicated. But Baldur's Gate has an amazing amount of customization for the player experience, which with my limited experience with D&D, which is what Baldur's Gate is based off of, is a really good representation of the source material. Because any GM is going to be able to tailor the experience to the players at the table. And if you are interested in Baldur's Gate 3, I did do a deeper dive that I'll link in the description that you can check out, so you can see if maybe it's your cup of tea. To be frank, if Baldur's Gate did not offer a story mode, I would not have played it on my own for very long, even though I am an absolute sucker for the romanceables.
I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to worry you.
And what that really shows me is that games have an amazing way of becoming approachable, especially to people who maybe would never play that kind of game. By offering story modes, the threshold of success is lowered. It allows someone who has never played that genre of game the ability to have a really positive, successful experience with it, which hopefully in turn grows the confidence enough to potentially play other games like it and increase the challenge that they might feel comfortable facing. It also makes the game more approachable for anybody who might struggle with the game mechanics for any reason. Another great example is the arachnophobia mode in Grounded 1 and 2. And while games like Monster Hunter don't offer a story mode, the game is structured in a way to slowly and gradually increase the difficulty as you master the game mechanics. Would I love for Monster Hunter to introduce a story mode? Absolutely. I would. Is that likely to happen? Probably not. But Monster Hunter does allow you to play with friends or with strangers. So if you are having a hard time with the game, you can recruit help. And I do have a deeper dive on Monster Hunter Wilds and World if you are interested to see if either of those games might be something that you could play. Especially if you're a bit intimidated by the mechanics, because I know that I was. Games aren't only about being challenging, which leads me into the question I posed earlier. Why should you care? At the end of the day, games are meant to be played and enjoyed, and developers can offer modifications to their games to make it more approachable to a wider array of people. And they can do that by offering ways to make the game easier, just like they offer ways for players to prolong and challenge their experience by adding harder difficulties. The reason you should care is that if you love video games and want more people to play them, well, story mode makes the barrier for entry much more manageable to cross. And more importantly, there is a greater need to remove stigma about playing games at easier modes. Playing at a different difficulty doesn't make you a better or worse gamer. It just means that the aspects of games that you enjoy might be different from someone else's. Play it in story mode, just as long as you enjoy your time with the game and maybe get to experience something that you were intimidated by before, because I know that I will. If you want to check out a game that might be a little bit intimidating, you can check out this video right here, and you might be surprised at how approachable it actually is. With that, save your games, water your plants, and I will see you next time.